Hi, welcome to the Online Jewelry Academy. I'm Professor John Ahr and I'm your instructor. In this video, I'm going to teach you about chasing repoussé. Now, chasing, as it's commonly referred to, has been around for millennia. And if you visit any major museum, you're bound to see metalwork included in their collection that illustrates what chasing repoussé can do. It's an amazing process that's quite simple that achieves an effect of creating an illusion of volume that can depict anything. Now, if you look here, you can see how somebody who's taking a classical approach to developing chasing skills might begin the process of learning how to do it. Here they would make a very simple illustration of geometric solids in the same way that a painter would first learn how to draw and create the illusions of mass and volume. Somebody who's learning how to do chasing repoussé would do something like this, where they create the illusion of a sphere, a cone, and a cube. Now, these skills can be later developed to create something a little bit more beautiful. Perhaps they might do something that's figurative, like this piece here. Now, it takes a while to develop the skills to really make something beautiful through this process. But I've created a project that's going to shorthand this process for you so that you can create something beautiful like this. Now, this is a lunar pendant that has a bail that is part of the piece itself that allows it to hang on the chain. And if it's a little too bright and shiny for you, guess what? Here on the Online Jewelry Academy, we have an entire playlist that's devoted to patinas for copper. So here I've used liver of sulfur to create a lunar eclipse, and I have two variations of how you might depict a blood moon. And these can be either equipped with a bail so that they're wearable like the pendant here, or you could set them using prong or bezel setting techniques, and we have videos on how to do that as well. Now let me show you some of the tools and supplies that you're going to need for this project. Now remember, we have a list of recommended tools and supplies in the description to this video. Just follow the Amazon links. First, I have pitch. Now this is a black pitch, but you could use black or red pitch. I also have a chasing hammer, some lip balm, a permanent marker. Now moving forward, I have a short piece of wooden dowel that's approximately 1/4 to 1/2 inch in diameter. I have a center punch, a small dapping punch, and I have two chasing tools. One has a rounded polished end and the other one has a straight end. Over here I have a pair of pliers that have been sacrificed to the pitch gods. In other words, they're just going to stay dirty. They're work pliers that only are incorporated into pitch processes. Then I have a regular pair of pliers that's from my kit and a pair of forming pliers. Now you're going to need a heat source. Here I'm using just a small butane torch, but any torch is usable. You're not going to burn the pitch, you're just going to warm it up with this. You'll also need small pieces of either masonite or MDF, that's medium density fiberboard, some paper, a piece of 22 gauge copper sheet metal. Now remember, chasing is usually done with gold, silver, and copper. You're also going to need a heating surface, and here I have a kiln shelf that's equipped with a Lazy Susan base. Now back here, of course, I have my safety glasses. You need to wear eye protection for this process. And here I have the pitch bowl that has the pitch already melted into it, and it's sitting on top of a holder that cradles the bowl. And we have a separate video on how you put the pitch into the bowl. So let me clear the table, and then I'll show you how to get started. Okay, I've cleared the table and now we're ready to start. The first thing you want to do is put on your eye protection. Now, when I conceived of this project, I knew I wanted to do the moon. So I went online and looked at images of the lunar surface. And I just made a really rough sketch to give me an idea of what the contours of that surface looked like. Next, what I did is I prepped a piece of MDF or medium density fiberboard by cutting a circle out of the very center of it. Now, I used a process to initially form my piece of 22 gauge sheet metal that's similar to the process that I used to make this pendant. Now we have a video on this, and if you remember, if you watched that video, I took the same type of MDF board and I cut the shape out from the center. Then I contoured this cutout by filing the edges and reducing the size of it slightly so that it would fit right into this piece of wood that I cut. That allowed me to bring pieces of the same 22 gauge copper and insert them into this tool and use this cutout to begin the forming process. Once I had made this initial indentation into the metal, I was then able to take a larger dapping punch and to smooth that piece to make it a nice round shape like the pendant. Okay, so let me show you what I did with the copper. I first drew an X from corner to corner. That way I could line it up with the top surface of my tool so that I knew that I would be working directly over the cutout. Then I just used a large dapping punch and I made the indentation. Now, if you don't want to cut a tool like this, you could work with a low-domed hardwood dapping block and punches to create this type of a concavity with your, or a crater with your metal. Okay, now this piece is ready to be treated with some of the pitch to go into our pitch bowl. The way that you're going to do that is you'll put it onto a heating surface, and here I'm using a piece of kiln shelf that's equipped with a Lazy Susan base. And I'm just going to take some of the crunched up pitch and just put it into this center crater. Now you don't want to overdo it, you just want to have enough that's going to fill this area with pitch. And what this pitch is going to do is it's going to act like a support. Okay, so once you have it like that, then use your torch to warm it gently to have it melt into that surface. Now remember, do not heat the metal to the point that the pitch burns or boils. You just want it to slowly melt. And you can see that it's getting a little glossy, especially if I run the flame over it. Remember, keep a fire extinguisher handy just in case this material is combustible. And if you need to add more pitch to even things out, feel free, go right ahead. But you just want to fill in the dome. Okay, be sure not to ignite the pitch. All right, so that's enough heat so I can turn off the torch. Now what I want to do is I want to take some waxy lip balm and I'm just going to lightly run it over the surface surrounding that concavity. Now, what this lip balm does is it serves as sort of a release. It allows the copper to come off the surface of the pitch. So we're just going to let that cool. Now you see a little bit of smoke coming off of it. It's not on fire, it's not combusting, it's just relaxing into the heat. And don't worry, this material is non-carcinogenic, but you should be working under proper ventilation or outdoors with it. Okay, so we're going to let this cool, and then I'm going to show you how to apply it to the surface of your pitch bowl. The pitch has cooled off, and I can touch the piece of copper. The next thing that I want to do is I want to take a pair of pliers, and I'll just use these that are for the pitch, and I'll just bend the corners of my plate. Now, what I'm doing is I'm creating little stabilizing cleats that will go into the pitch. And you don't need to make them very large. You just need them big enough to grab. So just turn the corners. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to warm the surface of your pitch bowl slightly so that it will accept these cleats. Sometimes you may even want to, depending on how rough you're going to work with your pitch, you may want to actually sort of submerge the corners just slightly into the pitch bowl. Now, the way that you warm it is with your torch. Now, you're not igniting it, you just want to heat it up slightly. Notice that I'm keeping a bit of distance with the torch. And we're just going to heat this area. Now, Never prepare your pitch bowl initially using a torch, and we have a video on it. Instead, only use the torch to soften the top surface to apply your work. Okay, once the top surface is warmed up, just remove your heat source, then take the pitch side and place it down and push it into the pitch. Now, if it doesn't immediately sink in, what you can do is relight your torch and just apply a little bit of heat to the corners. That's good. Now I can just push lightly, and now my piece has pitch inside the dome and it's anchored into the pitch bowl. And you can see that the pitch just slightly overlaps the square on the corners and on the sides. So we'll leave this to cool and then we'll begin working on it. Okay, before you begin striking the surface of your copper, you need to lay out your pattern. So I've transferred my design of the lunar surface to the top of the dome. Now, the next thing I need to do is start working on it. I'm going to use the small dapping punch first in order to push in the craters. So I'll start with these two small craters at the top. Now I'm using a chasing hammer, and we have a video on the way to properly work with this tool. It's a very, very interesting sort of hammer that has a unique action to it. Okay, so I'm going to start. And what's great about the way that the pitch bowl sits on this pad is I can angle it any way that makes it comfortable for me to work. And I tend to want to work towards me, or towards myself. Okay, so there's one small crater, and I'll do this one. Now I've got a larger one on this end, so I'll just turn it around. Okay, so I didn't really do much other than just pound that in. This other chasing tool that I have with the polished end, I'm going to use it to push in these areas that are basically the lava flow or the dark surface of the moon. Basically what makes the face of the man in the moon, or what the Aztecs used to see, the rabbit in the moon. And I'll start low, and basically what I want to do is I want to just lightly tap the piece and move the tool while I'm working. So turn that towards the camera so you can see where I've just struck and moved it. And you can see how it's pushed the dome in and sort of deformed it. Now, I would say if this is your first piece, have fun. Figure out the angles and the directions that are comfortable for you to work in, and practice moving the tool as you strike it with the hammer. That's going to enable you to really make accurate lines later on. Okay, so I'm going to just move up into this piece. Okay, so you can see I'm just pushing in, and the polished tool is leaving a really nice, bright, shiny spot where I've hit it. And to save time, I'm going to show you that I've previously done this one here. So this is what you're going to end up with after you completely strike this top surface. Now you notice that I didn't have any striations at this point, and that's because I'm imagining in my mind that something hit the surface of the moon and debris blew out of that crater and landed to make the ridges on there. So I'm going to push those from the opposite side. But to do that, I need to remove this from the pitch now. And it's essentially the same process that you did before to put it in. We're going to heat lightly around the edge, and I'm going to use the pliers that I've sacrificed to the pitch to remove it. Okay, so I'm going to light my torch. And you can see the pitch beginning to melt around the edge. And then I'm going to just dig in with my pliers. And I'm going to lift the piece out while I still apply the heat. Now, it has pitch inside of it. And normally what I would do is I would just continue to heat the opposite side until most of it comes out and blend it into whatever's on top of the surface of the pitch bowl. But for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to set this aside. And instead what I want to do is I want to prep this one to show you how to work on the opposite side. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I would need to reverse the cleats. So I'm going to bend the corners in the opposite direction that I did from the last time. So just grabbing these corners, I'll pull them up. Now all I need to do is apply the lip balm, and then I'm ready to warm the surface of the pitch with the torch and position the plate in the opposite direction. Remember, you're not trying to ignite the pitch, you just want to soften it with heat. So I need it to go down in the center, so I'm going to put a little bit more energy into that center area. The way that I got rid of the interior pitch was I basically melted it out and then burned off the residue. But there are solvents that can remove it as well. The advantage of burning it off is that I can simultaneously heat the piece to anneal it for the next step. All right, let's reapply the piece. And to make it sink in, I'll just heat it lightly again. Remember, if you focus on the corners, it will help it to drop down. And you can give it a push with your pliers. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to take a short break and let this chill so that I can show you how to finish out the inside. I put the piece aside for a while and it's cool to the touch and it's secured. Now I'm ready to work on the back side. Now, before I start doing anything, just like on the other side when I initiated the project, remember how I drew some guidelines? Well, I'm going to do that again. And this time I have to kind of look at my drawing to figure out where these craters are and where these striations occur. So I see the two small craters up here, so I can just hatch in a little bit of striation. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be a guideline. And I know the big one is down here, so I'm just going to draw some lines coming off of it. Okay, so I'm good to go there. Now what I want to do is I want to initiate this backside by ameliorating the surface, meaning that I don't want these textures to be so indented. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of wooden dowel and I filed and smoothed one end and I have another end that's my striking end. And I'm going to avoid my major craters, but I'm going to smooth the surface to make it nice and round again. And all I have to do is just tap it lightly. Okay, so you can see that I've pushed these areas down a little bit. It's perfectly normal to flatten something back out or put it back to a beginning point again. So now what I want to do is I want to use the thin tool to create these striations. And again, what I want to do is I'm going to tilt the bowl in such a way that I can glide the tool across the surface and towards myself so I can better see it. So let me make a few of these and then I'll show you what I've done. Part of the beauty of this hammer is that I don't have to look at where it hits. It's got a big face so I can just watch where the tool is moving on the surface of my project. Okay, so if you look in here, you can see where I've hit the piece to create these lines that are like the material that blasted out of this crater. Now I like that little peak that's in the middle of the crater. So to do that, what I want to do is I'm going to use the tip of a center punch on the part of the crater that's pushing up right now, and I'm just going to smack it in the other direction. Right there. That's all it took. I'm going to do it to my other two craters too, just because I like that effect. Okay. I'm going to give it a little bit more of a flattening. And there we go. I've got the back surface of my piece completed. Now, the next thing that I would need to do is to heat this piece up and pull it off of the pitch. Then what I need to do is clean that pitch off of the surface before the piece gets pickled and brass brushed and cleaned up. Now, when you burn off the pitch, if you choose to do that, you need extremely good ventilation. It's a little bit smoky. It will catch on fire, and the pitch is like molten candy or molten sugar. You don't want to get it on your skin. Be sure to wear protective clothing and eye protection. And you want to heat the pitch to the point that it goes to a gray ash before you quench it. If you take it to that point, it'll be completely removed. Now, one thing that I would recommend is don't do this operation or the burning operation over, say, your annealing pan. Have a separate pitch work surface that you work on, because if you do it on your annealing pan, what's going to happen is some of it's going to stick to the pumice stones, and then you're going to have pitch attached to projects that you'd never expected it to stick to. Okay, so let me pull this out and show you what it looks like. I finished cleaning up the piece, and here it is, all brass brushed and beautiful. And you can see how I got a really intricate piece in just a few steps. Now, to finish this piece off, what you would do is you would take your jeweler's saw and of course saw it out. But remember, you could leave a bit of a tang at one end of it, and then using forming pliers, just roll it over like I did here, and then you have a wearable that you can immediately put on a chain and wear out and impress your friends with. I hope you liked this project. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Remember, you can follow the Online Jewelry Academy on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for watching.